What's the number one challenge for businesses today?
Workforce development, attracting, recruiting, and retaining people.
And that's why we created this podcast, designed for the frustrated CEO, the under-resourced recruiter, or the overworked manager, to give you the tools to tackle those WTF moments.
It's time to open another workforce therapy file.
Welcome back to the Workforce Therapy Files. We are wrapping up our three-part series on recruiting begins with retention. This episode is going to focus on that third group. Remember, our first one was 0 to 6 month employees, or what we called the Excitables, those who are excited to be there and ready to roll. The next group was the 6 month to 3 year employees. Those are the evolvers. They're kind of moving into a new role. They're understanding what they do now, and some of those expectations change a little bit. And now we're moving into part 3, which is the 3 year plus employees. These are your longer haulers. We're calling them the Eddies, the steady Eddies. So today we're going to talk about the steady Eddies. And Jamie, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I want to actually start though by talking about this is the group that whenever we start talking about, we talked about the beginning Excitables and the Evolvers, and there's a lot of commonalities in that group. This is the group, when we're talking about the Eddies, where we're looking at how the organization is operating. This is the group that is evaluating that well. So like if we were to look at engagement as an example, one of the things I saw in a recent CNBC article was that workers are the unhappiest they've been in 3 years, and it can cost the global economy $8.8 trillion. The global economy. I thought that was a pretty staggering number.
Trillion.
With a T, in case I didn't enunciate that. We do have some Western Kentucky creeping in every once in a while. But it is trillion. Thank you, Molly. And when we look at organizational engagement, this is also the group where you start to see some stagnation, maybe some decline, but this is really where your organizational efforts start to show up. So in this group, there are things that we have to focus on because we're going to start to see a little bit more boredom. We're going to see the need for challenge. It's the point where they will expect to have some sense of community and connection at work. They're going to expect to have work that makes them feel excited and engaged. And if it hasn't felt excited or engaged, we're probably hitting the ceiling for how long they can do that kind of work. There's a little bit more of entitled to something.
You're going to get. I think you're going to get team members who feel who are either going to be comfortable in the job they were hired for and are settling into or are settled into now, or they're going to be looking. These might be your leaders. Are they going to be promoted? Are they going to become leaders? Are they leaders already? Mm-hmm. So there's sort of a fork in the road for some of these folks. Absolutely. And it's great and just fine if they just love their job and want to stay where they're at. So, how do you keep them there, though, if they're good and you've invested all this time and money into them and they have all this institutional knowledge that if lost I don't know if you can even put a value on it. So How do we keep them?
Well, this is a group, too, where turnover data may not automatically be the best indicator.
That's right.
So one of the things that happens with this group very commonly is that there are these tenure-based incentives they're not going to be eligible for. It might be I'm eligible for more incentive, bonus, compensation. It might mean I'm now going to be fully vested in my stock or my 401k or the pension.
I get another week's vacation.
Mm-hmm. Here's all these things that I'm inspired to get, but it doesn't mean anything about whether or not I actually like being here or I want to do this work. Right?
Well, and I think we just touched on the sense of entitlement. If you're an organization that has horrible turnover and that person has seen that your 3 year plus person has seen an individuals walk in and out of that door and you're the one that's the sustainable piece, mm-hmm. Why shouldn't I feel entitled? Why shouldn't I feel like, I'm helping you keep the doors open on this place, buddy?
Yeah. If I wasn't here, there wouldn't be anybody to train any of these new people.
Right. So how do you curb that?
But there's also this piece of like, if you're the one that's training everybody and everybody's leaving.
Is it you?
It might be. I mean, if A has an issue with B and A has an issue
Well,
with C.
is it you or is it the process you're following?
That's right.
Have you been given a playbook that is flawed? Maybe
That's
it's time
fair.
to rewrite it.
Or are you completely burnt out with having to train 15 people? There was one organization I worked for where we were responsible in our location for training an entire region of new employees. At one point, I had 5 or 6 HR people following me everywhere I went.
No.
That's okay for like a couple days, but it is not sustainable, especially if the next week you're just replacing with a different group of people. It made me feel a little bit like a mother goose, like where you're just walking through.
Well, you're a performer at that point. You may not be your authentic self because you're trying to be something for them.
Yeah.
And so that's exhausting.
What about those folks that you get to at that 3-year plus mark? And I was just as guilty of this, of the employer that I was at for 12 plus years, golden handcuffs. Like, I can't leave here and go somewhere else with the vacation time that I have, with the stock options that I have, with the pay that I have. I don't necessarily think that I was bored, but I don't feel like I was being challenged either. But I also believe, at what point, who does that fall on?
Let me ask you this, Molly.
Wait,
What could they have done better for you in that situation? Where you were maybe not bored, but you weren't being challenged, you felt a little handcuffed. What could they have done for you that would have helped you say, I'm going to stay here another 12 years?
I've never thought about it, but now that I'm being put on the spot,
Yes, sorry.
I think right off the cuff, I would say that someone to challenge me, or a leader that I felt I was still learning from, would have been the changer for me. Because if a leader that I was still learning from came to me and said, your numbers are just okay. You're doing good work. You show up on time. You leave when you're supposed to. You don't cause trouble. But are you having fun? Every year within the company at Incipio, do you still feel joy in the role that you have? Do you still feel challenged in the position and the work that you're doing with us? And if you don't, we need to talk about that. And even if that's a different role within Incipio, or helping them find a different role, I don't want to be the cause of someone's lost joy.
Yeah, you're hitting on something that we didn't plan to talk about this, but I think there's a really neat thing you're hitting on there, which is introspection. I think there are people who just aren't naturally introspective.
Sure.
That's just not in their DNA. And so, as human resource employees, as managers, as leaders, it falls back on leadership to sometimes help those people along. Like you said, be self-reflective. Is this what you want it to be? Is this job helping you get where you want to get in your life? What's your plan?
And
Can we help you? Can we help you get there?
I'm really glad you brought that up, because when I look at individuals who appear to be, people would call them disengaged, but that's just because they're complaining a lot. And I always felt like the people who decided they were still willing to complain to me felt like there was still something that could be done. I always worried about the people that went silent, right?
As you should.
Right. And I think there is something to that point, of making sure that you understand what those concerns are. If people are still investing in you and think that you're going to be somebody to listen, that means that they still think that you care. And I think you have to take advantage of that.
You hit it right there. That's it. Even if they don't have or cannot come up with an answer of self-reflective answer of where they want to be or where they want to go, you asked.
Yeah.
And so they feel valued.
Yeah.
And that is so important for those people in that longevity phase of employment. Do they even care about me anymore? Does my employer even care about me anymore? So asking questions, maybe not even doing things for them. There's no tactic here. You're not trying to trick them into anything. You just want to being genuine. I really want to know, can we do anything to help you? Is there anything we can do to make your experience here better?
And, when we were talking about naming these groups, we started with that 0 to 6 months as the Excitables. And it's because that's when you're the most excited about your job. And
Yeah.
I think that as leaders, whenever you see that there's someone on your team that's starting to wane in that excitement and starting to go into a place of complaining, it is worth the conversation to say, it doesn't feel like this job is doing for you what it used to.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
So
And that's
let's-
a tough conversation to have.
It is, but you got to have it because that's how you demonstrate care.
Yeah. Even prefacing it with, I'm not criticizing you. I
Not at
just
all.
want to help you get where you need to be.
Because we all spend way too much time of our working time at work to be miserable doing it, to Molly's earlier point.
There are also milestones you can look for in an organization's growth that might help them kind of reignite that excitement.
Yeah.
So our company was recently acquired. Now we've got all these new resources. It's going to change. Our, instead of reflecting on it in a negative way.
That's right.
I'm going to be fired.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It'll never be the same.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, this new leader came in recently. They've got a new vision. It's going to change the way we do these things. It's going to be better. Talk those things up in a positive way. Find the positive things that might excite your steady eddies instead of just keeping them at sort of a steady level. Get them back into that kind of, newlywed phase, if you will.
But not to sound like the jaded HR person. And I know that I'm playing a risk here by doing that.
See, you shouldn't even say it because
I
you were
know,
thinking
I
it.
know.
It's like when you put it on in the morning, should I wear this today? If you have to ask, don't do it.
Yes.
But give it to us. What is it?
No.
Give it to me.
I think there is also the possibility of making sure that you've built the kind of relationship where you can have rigorous candor, right? Like where you can say, hey, yeah, we've been acquired. We don't actually know how the rest of it's going to go. I want to be honest with you because I want you to continue to trust this relationship, right? And I do think that there is a possibility. There's some people who always want to go for the positive message, and that can almost start to feel like corporate gaslighting.
Yeah.
Uncertainty is okay to call out as times of uncertainty. And I think we have to be really careful about that because I think you can lose engagement really fast if you're like, oh, it's going to be amazing. Here's this awesome supervisor that's coming in. If they're not actually awesome or we don't know yet, like what is the...
So I have a question to propose.
Okay.
So the grandiose saying is people hate change.
Mm-hmm.
People hate change. They don't want to see it. They don't enjoy it. But everybody wants the new iPhone.
Yeah.
Well, what?
I think Apple has done something really neat, though, with the iPhone, if you were to try to take it and unpack it, and that is that you can figure out an iPhone. I think everybody hates unplanned change, uncommunicated change. I went in here to get this form, and it's not there anymore. Where did the form go? I don't even know who I'm supposed to call.
That's
Who
fair.
moved that?
Why don't we have a human that I can go talk to about my benefits anymore?
Right.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great one.
Well, like it just in my line of work, Crowd South, we also do web development for our projects and companies. And one of the things I hear a lot is, hey, we want to take this thing on this page and we want to put it on this other page. And I go, hold up. People are used to it being there. Mm-hmm. They could freak out. This is a very highly trafficked page. You don't want to just throw it over there. At a minimum, leave some sort of message or link or button.
Breadcrumb.
Something to help them get there. But they're really excited. They might be excited about the change themselves, but the masses will not. So, I think on the whole, people who've been with a company a long time, they get comfortable. They're like, okay, cool. I'm here.
That's why we
I
call
don't
them the
have to
Eddies.
worry anymore. Yeah.
If
Steady.
I woke up tomorrow morning and my head were sewn to the carpet, I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now.
Eddie. So I think some of the tactical things, moving on to like metrics and so forth, some of these people could be looking for leadership opportunities, and that's fair. Mm-hmm. They've been there long enough. They know the place. And frankly, maybe they've got the talent. If they do, they need to be considered for that because there's nothing worse than being somewhere for 5 years and getting overlooked.
That's right.
Or having been talked to about here's your career path here, and then you don't get that. And then they don't explain why you didn't get it. It just happens to you.
Yeah.
You don't want it to happen to them.
Yeah.
So that's a bad thing that can happen. Another thing is you can think about work-life balance benefits, how you can work around things. They're in a different phase of life by then. They say you change, right, as a person every 7 years. You're a totally different person than you were 7 years ago.
I feel like I'm behind on that one.
Yeah, maybe it's 12. Maybe at our stage in life,
Hashtag
it
catch
takes
up.
a little longer.
Is that the Mayan calendar? I don't know what's happening.
But, you think about like someone who may have been hired 8 or 9 years later, they may not have had kids at the time. Maybe they have kids now.
That's right.
Maybe they have a significant other, or maybe they have gone remote in that period of time, and things have changed. What impressed them and got them excited when they were excitables or evolvers might be different than if they're a steady Eddie. So don't keep giving them the same piece of candy. Their tastes may have changed.
And the tolerance starts to change.
Yeah.
Right? So in the beginning, when things feel uncertain or I'm confused, I'm able to say that it's because I'm new.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I start to go into something else, it's like, well, maybe it's because I'm trying something new. But then if I get to like 3 years in and I still don't know all the things I feel like I should know and nobody's investing in me, now I'm starting to get bitter.
Yeah.
Like it starts to shift. Or you mentioned work-life balance. I knew that whenever I got hired, it was during peak. I knew that was going to be a lot of hours. It never quit being peak.
Right.
I didn't expect that. That wasn't part of the agreement. And everybody said that it was going to go back to normal, right? Like it's I was willing to do that for that long. I'm not willing to do that forever.
Right.
I knew that the system was going to be clunky because it was a launch. I knew the tool was going to be clunky because it was a new tool or a new process. But staying clunky starts to disengage folks.
Well, and I think a lot when speaking about work-life balance, it means so many things to so many people.
Absolutely.
Right? And to your point earlier, Jason, about benefits, one of the things that we do when we have our initial conversation with an organization is we talk about the value of benefits. And more often than not, you have organizations that have one benefits plan for 5 generations in the workforce.
Yeah. Very different
That-
needs.
Does not work.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I'm going to say we evolve every 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to
Ooh,
go
I
with
like that.
evolve.
That's good.
I'm not big
Maybe
on-
I've done that.
I think we're evolving.
That feels better.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
It feels smarter,
Yeah.
bigger. So we're going with evolve. So I evolve every 7 years. Well, that means that what's most important to me is not what was most important to me 14 years ago. That being whether I want to travel more, I want to invest more because I don't want to work for the rest of my life.
That's right.
How can I look at the different things of maybe it's stock options because I'm able to take more risk? What are those things that we can do as employers to speak into where everyone is in their stage of life?
Yeah.
And the only way, now listen, can you hear me?
Yes.
The only way you're going to find out what's going to be best is if you ask.
Yeah, that's right.
Come on now.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen.
Don't assume.
We know what that
We
means.
know what that means.
Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
I knew somebody was going to say it.
You
Yeah,
know-
I think it takes it back to, we've talked about how these 3 groups are different, but there are some similarities. We still think that you should look at engagement data and you should parse it by these segments. You should look at that 0 to 6 months, that 6 months to 3 years, and the 3 years plus. You should try to find ways to engage their brain. Like, what are the things that we're going to put out there for individuals to learn about or explore? A lot of organizations are starting to turn on things like LinkedIn Learning. It's e-learning. You can get out there and learn about anything that you want. I actually took a course the other day on QuickBooks because I wanted to learn more about QuickBooks. And I'm not an accountant, and so it would be very helpful for me to know why my numbers don't match right now. So I went to LinkedIn Learning because I have it turned on and I could go and do that. Looking at engagement survey data by this population to try to understand what are the motivators for your organization and what are the opportunities for this group is still a very meaningful activity.
I saw some information, some data the other day around continuing education and how the numbers were flipped. So employees overwhelmingly feel that continuing education should be the responsibility and the expense of the employer. C-suite were interviewed with the same set of questions. They overwhelmingly feel like it is not their responsibility to continually educate the employee. They feel like it is on them to improve themselves. So there is a massive disconnect. Now, I'm not saying management, I'm saying C-suite.
Right.
So there is a massive disconnect between, and I'm not saying if you're a C-suite, that's the way you feel. And I'm not saying if you're an employee, that's the way you feel. But that was the data that bore out in that study. And I thought, that's interesting because for me as a leader, as an owner, I feel like anytime anyone says, I want to learn, you don't even have to finish the sentence. Go do it. I don't care what it costs. Go do it. If you're learning and it's going to help me, it's going to help you, we all win. I want you to stick around. I want to retain you. And I want you to be better for me.
And the ability to learn is
Yeah.
never going to be something that if you invest in it, then it won't pay off.
Celebrating their successes too when they do those things. We have team members who, we have a social media team, they're regularly getting, and that world changes so fast, so constantly, certificates. So there are these certificates. LinkedIn issues them, Meta issues them.
Yep.
All the platforms have their own education system. And we push them, to do it. And they, they're a little earlier in their careers with us. They're a little reluctant to take a test, oh, I don't want to disappoint my employer, or I don't want to disappoint myself. But once they start to get those wins, they're great. And then when we do their performance review annually, they're like, I got 5 new certificates this year. It's like, oh, okay, that's awesome. Okay, well, I'm impressed.
That's right.
So, I think offering those things, paying for those things, despite what you think you should be doing, I'm going to tell you right here and right now, you should be doing it. You should be giving
You
them
tell
whatever
them,
they need.
Jason. You tell them.
Yeah.
Recognition
have to.
matters.
Recognition matters.
Or you don't, and I'll take that great employee away from you. How about that?
Yeah. And if Rick Heflin doesn't get a statue,
That's
somebody
right.
missed something.
Yeah, we need to work on that.
Yep.
So I want to close us with posing a question to everyone to answer however. In the followings, in our notes, in communication, why do people leave? Recruiting begins with retention. Why do people leave? At whatever stage their employment is in, 0 to 6 months at the Excitables, and the passion and the drive and just, woohoo, got a job. To the Evolvers, 6 months to 3 years. And then all the way to your Eddies, your steady Eddies, your 3+ years. Why do people leave? If you don't know how to answer that question for you and your organization, we highly recommend that you find out and know that Jamie with Parcel, Jason with Crowd South, and myself, Molly with Incipio Workforce Solutions, we can help you figure it out. And know that we love discovery and helping define how those things fall into place. So with that, Jim,
Close that file. Thanks for listening to the Workforce Therapy Files. We hope you learned something new, and we're thankful for the time that you spent with us today. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us. Our contact information's listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your head up.